Welcome to the Sales Leader Roundtable, a show where we explore, share, and learn about trends in leadership and sales acumen. A place that provides our audience valuable insights, advice, and best practices from trusted members of the sales leadership community. Now, let's welcome KENDLEY Davenport and jdiebold to this episode of the Sales Leader Roundtable.
Well, welcome everyone to the 2024 version of the Sales Leader Roundtable. Hello, Jim.
Hey, Kenley, how's it going? It's hard to believe that it's 2024.
I mean, what happened to 2023? I mean, we had 12 shows. It seems like it was like yesterday we were doing January a year ago.
No doubt. I know one thing's for sure, though, that everybody that was with us last year is off to a much better start right now than they were before, assuming they took the information and ran with it, and they're off to a great start this year with who we got for them today.
That is exactly right. Jim. And I'm so thankful to continue to be working with you, and I appreciate you and everything we've been able to do together. But, we ought to take a second and, we've welcomed everybody to the Sales Leader Roundtable TV show and radio broadcast, but we ought to tell them a little bit about what we're all about before we bring our guest on. And so I want to start out by really thanking USA Global TV and Radio for all of their confidence and trust in allowing us this excellent time slot and ability to sort of broadcast and forecast some of the great ideas and great thought leadership that we have related to leadership and sales acumen. So a big shout out to USA Global TV. And I would tell our audience, whether they're on the radio in a podcast or whether they're watching on a live streaming, USA Global TV has a whole lot of other topics, just not ours, that you could dive into. So we encourage our audience to take a look. But, the Sales Leader Roundtable, if you've been coming before, you should know by now that what we try to accomplish is we explore topics in leadership and sales acumen with some of the leading thought leaders in this space. Our goal each month is to bring you actionable and practical information that allows you to immediately grow your teams or your leadership skill set. So, Jim, it's time to get started on 2024 in our first episode.
Right on. Thanks, Kenley. So I get the pleasure of introducing Tom Freedman. I got a chance to meet Tom a couple years ago, and it's nice it's coming full circle to get a chance to have him on our show today. But to tell you about Tom, he has successfully launched multiple businesses over nearly 25 years as an entrepreneur. He has also consulted, trained, and coached thousands of professionals for high performance results in business, athletics, first responders, military, and more. Currently, as the founder and CEO of Defiant Enterprises, Tom works directly with solo, micro, and small business entrepreneurs to redesign business models that acquire the clients they need and then ascend those clients to a portfolio of high net worth. His A&A model is what the majority of the top 4% of wealthy small business owners apply, and has a proven process to guide others to do the same. He and his team provide consulting and outsourcing services in the areas of marketing, business development, sales, and operations to accelerate growth, profitability, and scalability. Without further ado, Tom Freedman.
Welcome to the show,
Jim.
Tom.
Oh, thanks, Kenley. Jim, I appreciate the intro, and it's always great seeing you both. So thanks for the invite. Glad to be here. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you something, Tom. I think this month, as I've been thinking about your topic of your business model will never get you what you want. I mean, that jumped out at me when we were talking about your topic, and I went, wow, I got to know more about that. And then as I really thought about it and saw some of the takeaways that we're going to provide our audience today, I noticed that I really believe, and you tell me if I'm wrong, I think your topic really applies to anybody in leadership, whether you are an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, or even a small business. Even if you're a mid-level manager or for that matter, a senior manager in a business, I think a lot of the things we're going to talk about today applies if you're responsible for growing revenue in your organization. Do you agree with me, or do you think it's something different?
I do. On a high level, Kenley, and I appreciate the viewpoint on that, is, whenever we're working just towards any type of goal in general, right? Goals are great to actually write out and maybe have some aspirations to do so. But unless we actually have like an actual plan to get there, it rarely happens. And unfortunately, I watch myself and plenty of other people. I know I did it for years, and I'm always looking back and trying to make this better. And that is, most of my goals did not come into fruition. Why? Because I didn't reflect upon what was working and what was not working and finding a model that could actually get me what I want. Instead, I just remained busy. So yes, I couldn't agree. No matter who we're talking to, I think the general concept is make sure your model will actually get you to where you want to be.
I love that that perspective, Tom. When I read the title, I think it's a polite way of saying stop following the definition of insanity, right?
Yeah.
Where we just keep doing the same things over and over. And to your point about creating goals, even coming from the corporate space, goals were meant to be discussed for half a day, wasting everyone's time, and then shove them in a desk drawer and bring them back out a year later to see how we did, as opposed to creating the tasks that go along with achieving those goals, or the game plan, as you said. So I got to ask, it's a great story. So how on earth did you get to where you are right now?
Yeah, just beating myself up as much as possible, really, Jim. I mean, I wish I had like some brilliant story to tell you, or that I had like, a head for it. But honestly, mine was just straight grit. I grew up in a family where my father was an entrepreneur. He worked his tail off. All of his friends were small business owners. So like everybody that I interacted with at a young age all the way through, and I'm talking diapers all the way up, were just small business owners. So by the time I got out of college, it was like tick-tock clock. Can we start this new business or what? And I thought for I guess all intents and purposes that I would be able to figure it out faster than I did. The problem is small business is really hard. Owning your own business, period, is really hard. So it took me a ton of trial and errors to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And while I'm still learning every single day of my life, I certainly don't make the same mistakes that I did early on. So my dedication towards like working with anybody in my space now is just try to minimize some of the dumb mistakes that I made so that you can get there faster. That's it.
I love that. The now popular phrase, flatten the curve, right? As in the learning curve in this example. So yeah. I love it.
Tom,
Jim, I don't know Jim Kelly, I don't even know what you think about this particular topic real quick, but I think it resonates quite well. And that is like, there's got to be a happy medium. And that is like, learn from other people that have already done it so that you make less mistakes. But in the same respect, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Right? Like you must make your own mistakes. Like if I didn't make some of the mistakes that I did, I wouldn't have enough pain not to ever make them again or make adjustments to make it more successful. In the same breath, there are some things that I've avoided by having the advice of somebody that is far more wise or seasoned than I was. So there's got to be an equal balance.
No, I wholeheartedly agree with that, Tom. As a matter of fact, before I engage with someone, I let them know that I just became their silent partner. We're going to walk through this hand in hand together. We're going to make a lot of great decisions, but we're also going to make some stinkers. But the aggregate is going to be accelerated growth, and it's overall going to be great. So we're in it together.
What Tom said to me really resonated in my private equity days. You go into private equity firms, there's a whole lot of money at stake because, someone's come in and invested a whole lot of money and now they want to return, right? They want to move quickly. And I learned quickly, you had to learn how to fail fast. You talked about, you got to have mistakes, but you got to fail fast and you got to learn. It's what you talked about, learn from them quickly. And it's something you said early on in your discussion. You talked about grit. You talked about planning. You've really got to have a plan and understand it. Does your plan back up to your objectives? And then follow the plan. And grit is a little bit about sticking to it, right? It's a little bit about, if this is what the plan is, I need to follow it. And because, in my opinion, tell me what you think, Tom, but because you plan it out, because you're going to stick to it, you can then have a chance to analyze or experience either success or failure. And if it's failure, you can learn, you can fail fast. You can figure out and adjust it. But if you're just all over the place every day with no real plan, you never really figure it out. It just takes a lot longer to figure it out. What do you think?
I think that's great. Look, I always tell people this: you will be fail proof if you're willing to adjust from failures. I was way too hard-headed in my young years to practice what I preach, what I'm saying now, right? I was way too hard-headed, and maybe you guys can resonate with that as well. But as I started to get more and more gray hair, I learned to take some time for reflection and find out what's working and what's not working. Build folks around me that can give me really strong advice and look out for my best interests and vice versa, and make sure you adjust to what your personal and professional life looks like. Without reflection and the action of adjustment, you will keep failing, whether it's fast or slow, but keep failing in the same way. But if you just are relentless about saying it's okay to make mistakes, but I'll never make the same mistake again, overall, that relentless attitude will lead you to success. It works for everybody.
Love that. So speaking of making mistakes, small business owners make a ton because they're by themselves. So along those lines, though, in your bio, we mentioned a little bit about who you serve, the micro and small businesses, but give us a little more about that, Tom. And why them in particular?
Yeah, I mean, look, I have a special place in my heart for solo and micropreneurs. Why? Because that's how I grew up. Again, with my earlier story, that's what my father was, right? That's what all of his friends and family was and everything else. And I know the world really, really well, right? Also, the vast majority of businesses on this planet, what makes the world go round is like almost all of them are small business owners or micros. What I mean by micros is pretty much like around 5 to 10 belly buttons on your team or less, right? And most of these folks are making under 1 million in annual revenue. But none of the folks in this particular category are likely making over $20 million in annual revenue. So all very small businesses with very small teams. But these folks are, again, that make up like almost 97, 98% of the entire population. So if I feel like if I can solve just some of the problems for even a smidgen of those folks, I'm doing both my father and the world a heck of a lot more justice, and it makes it so much easier to wake up in the morning with a purpose that resonates for you.
Nice. Love it.
Tom, how do you get, I think this applies really to anyone. How do you get small business people or organizations who oftentimes people wear multiple hats, many hats within the organization? How do you get them, what is your process for helping them take a step back from their business a little bit, be able to make the time necessary to make these adjustments that we have to make? And I asked that question based on your experience working with, I know, hundreds of companies with success, but I think it applies to a sales manager running a 5-person sales team somewhere. Just apply the same techniques to that. What do you think?
Yeah, listen, both of you guys, right, are sales experts. And I think you will agree with this statement. The biggest mistake most small business owners make is this: they do not know their place. And I know that's harsh because I actually didn't know my place either. What I mean by know your place is this: I see this way too many times, that small business owners are too quick to remove themselves from the singer of the band. In other words, they believe that they can just hire other people for sales or just keep delegating the responsibilities of representing your company. When you're really small, my friends, you are the company. Don't let that go. In fact, you should really concentrate on remaining the singer of the band and just make sure you build all of the people around you to help support your efforts. But there comes a time when that does cross over to a bigger than you approach. And that's when you have the actual resources to bring on the right people, put in the right systems and processes in place, and make your company beyond yourself. But if it's done too quickly or too slowly, you will fail.
it's interesting you bring that up, because when you first started talking, I have to admit what my mind went to is you were getting ready to say you got to understand your ideal customer, and I'm coming back to that. But you really about knowing your place in the business, and I thought that was very insightful, particularly for leaders who that are trying to drive their brand forward, and I think that could hold true in regional teams, et cetera. But I want to dive into that because it did bring up that ideal customer profile. And I know that in some of the takeaways, you have to really understand your audience. So not only knowing your place in the business, but knowing who you're really after, right? It seems to me and Jim, I think I see this a lot when we go into businesses, that they have that sort of mixed up.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I like to try and water this stuff down as easy as possible so everybody can have takeaways, and makes business a heck of a lot easier than what it needs to be. So what you're talking to or referring to, Kenley, in my world is called SAM. That's your solution, your audience, and your message. If Sam is unhealthy, I don't care if it's his head, the S, his body, the A, or his lower body in the M. If anything is unhealthy, your company will be unhealthy. So you need the right solution to the right audience with the right message. And if you can't get all of those three things to come together, there's no amount of effort on planet Earth that will get you what you want. So really try to figure out, what is your solution, and is it actually going to the audience that actually needs it and can support it? And finally, if you don't have a clear, concise, compelling, and consistent message, best of luck to you, my friends. SAM is the most important thing you can do in not just a small business, all businesses.
So that I love that acronym. It makes me, the way you described it, as the head, the basically, we'll say the torso, the middle body, and the bottom. I was envisioning a person standing there with some unhealthy parts, or all healthy parts. So when we think about the solution piece, let's focus there for just a second, in the sense of, we know that small businesses have challenges. And this is where you're ultimately coming in with your system to help them with their challenges. So you mentioned the longer term engagement. Help us understand that mentality or mindset you're trying to help these small businesses with out of the challenges they currently have, hence the title of the show.
Yes. So listen, the first thing, and probably one of the biggest problems I see a lot of people have with solution in and of itself. And I don't care if you're a product person, you're peddling a product or a service or some type of blend of the two, it doesn't make a difference. But one of the biggest issues that I find all the time is this: they sell by volume. In other words, they're flat fees all the time. They're selling their products, services, or blends like this. Pay me this amount of money for whatever I'm offering, and that's it. It dies on the vine. There is nothing more than that. So what I help people do for solutions is this: you need to build a solution, no matter what you do, that starts somebody at a particular price, and then with your help, will guide them through some type of journey that results in some type of measurable performance. And we all have it no matter what we do. But that performance must dictate raising your price. So in other words, don't ask for a higher price unless you make it actually worth it. You make yourself prove your price increase. So if you're saying that you're going to increase somebody's revenue base or get new client acquisitions or maybe improve efficiency or profitability or whatever it may be, then map that out appropriately. But you should always have a product, service, or blend that starts at one price and clearly ascends or expands the investment for the lifetime value of every single customer. If you're selling based off of projects, hourly work, or fixed rates, the only way to keep growing as your company is through volume. And that is the most exhausting and most costly way you can possibly grow and sustain a company over time.
Wow, that is a very interesting concept. I mean, because there are some people that I know who negotiate say stock, for example, or lower fees with stock options moving forward or something along those lines, because number one, and maybe only one, they believe that much in what they're doing for the organization that they're willing to roll those dice, right? I believe that's kind of sort of what I just heard you describe, right? Is charge this today and charge this tomorrow based upon results.
That's correct. And the funny part, Jim, is this: I'm not special. You're not special. Nobody is special. So what I mean by that, at least for this category, what I mean by that is simply this: no matter what you sell, again, I don't care if it's a product, service, or some type of blend, there are always ways to get your prospects or your clients to expand or ascend upon the investment that they come into your company with. Always. It doesn't even make a difference if you're selling whatever, something like a necktie, right? Which nobody even wears anymore anyway. But like, even looking at like ties, right? You should always say something like this, right? If our necktie, right, lasts so long or whatever like that, right, then we would get this next series of neckties. Or like, if you get this color, right, you have to add to the collection of this color. But it's calculated in our marketing, business development, and sales to create intentional journeyed, right, client engagements or customer engagements, so that people are not just investing more money with you, they're investing it in a clear and concise fashion that makes sense. So even if you can't tie it directly like to something like KPIs or milestones or accomplishing certain types of, let's say, checkpoints in a phased contract. Let's say it's just a product line. It still has to be a calculated journey that your marketing and business development sales efforts tell people when and why to increase their investment with you, right? And if you're able to do that, it doesn't have to be based off of volume alone to grow, profit, and scale your company. Instead, you can start to do that by impact, making your current clients responsibly increase the amount they're spending with you while you continue to grow your volume.
You know, that's fascinating, Tom, because from a marketing perspective, any organization, especially if they have a higher ticket item that people tend to only buy once every decade, whoa, that's the perfect example of what you were talking about in the sense of needing all that volume, because like, how do you create the value, the service, the product or whatever that allows people to come around more than once every decade?
Well, it's interesting, Tom, and Jim, my observation of recent is you talk about these things, Tom, you're trying to get smaller organizations to really do what some larger organizations have been doing in a different way. I think you're trying to get people to get the basics right. And then when the basics are right, it becomes easy to what in corporate America we would call upselling, cross-selling, all those other types of terms, right? About how to get more out of the same customer. Because I can relate when I was in, multinational corporate America, when we got the one service we were doing, as you said, creating great value, they were expanding that service. It also made it very easy to add additional services, and sometimes complementary and sometimes unrelated to what they were doing. And that really, it allowed us not to spend much money in marketing and allowed us to really grow our company without really growing our customer actual new addresses. They were the same addresses. So every year would go out and get a couple of new addresses, but the more emphasis was what they called account management. How do I grow the accounts I have into things that are profitable? And in some cases, if you're not growing them, what can I fix about that account so I am creating the value they want to grow with me, right?
Yeah. And look, Kenley, you work with a lot of these folks, and same with you, Jim, like a huge culprit all the way up through every type of company, but especially in the small business space and mid-market space. And that is, they've become successful through hard work on acquiring clients and doing a good job. But when you ask this next follow-up question, what does inside sales look like? What does the marketing, how does that appear in your plan so that your current customers have a reasonable way of continuing their investment with you by adding more and more to it? Not just for the sake that you want more money, but it makes sense to them for the investment, that they get the return they desire. And their eyes glaze over. There is no such thing as inside sales for a small company or even a mid-market company. It doesn't exist. And therefore the language, the email marketing, right, the entire client engagement is completely absent of simply signing people up as a new customer, doing a good job, and the end. Grave. Most small businesses and mid-market companies are leaving over 50% of the potential on the table because they have not found a way to take the current customers they have and continuing to engage them in higher levels of investment.
Tom, it hit the nail on the head there. You know, coming from a sales background in corporate America, one thing I learned really quick is I could do better with the relationships I already had than trying to generate a whole bunch of new ones. Now, that wasn't an excuse to not go generate new relationships, but as far as truly moving the needle, it's easier to do it where you already have relationships. And a lot of people tend to miss that. They're stuck in these silos of thought that this is the way marketing is done in my type of business, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I wanted to say one other thing. I love this conversation because a couple solopreneurs that I've had over the years, by far, compared to any other organization, struggle the most with how to price themselves. Because they feel like, well, it takes me this long and I'm satisfied with earning this kind of dollars for that amount of time, and no consideration of value for what they're doing for their clients at all. And it's mind-boggling to them that people will actually invest higher sums of money for what they do for them because of the results they get. So I love this conversation hugely.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Jim, here's a real fact, right? 94 to 96% of all solo and micropreneurs right now are making less than $20,000 a month coming back to them, right? So that means if you have 10 belly buttons on your team or less, you personally, the owner of the company, are making less than $20,000. Now, here's a scary number. What the realities are is about 90% of those people are actually making less than $12,000 on average per month. Guys, that's not enough money. Like most of these owners, they're taking this risk. They come from a core competency. A lot of them hung a shingle off, like for themselves, but coming from a high corporate background with an awesome resume. They could turn that over tomorrow and actually make double that money by going to work for a bigger firm. Why do they not want to do it? Well, everybody wants to live the American dream, right? Own your own company and do the right thing, right? All that kind of stuff. My point is, if you can't find a model that's actually going to make you money of what you're really worth, hang your head up, get out of it, go work for somebody else that has already figured it out. All you're going to do is lose your significant other, not have a relationship with your kids, and be frustrated to death trying to figure out the pieces of the puzzle. Folks, you got to figure out a model that's making more than that. 94 to 96% is not acceptable in this country for that type of salary for an owner of a company, period.
You may have just described the first company I owned.
I have my living out of the car situation before. Thank God I don't do that anymore. But yeah, I'm with you.
I think, Tom, that's where the phrase owning a job comes from. If you don't have the financial freedom that you expect to have by owning a business, the time freedom that you thought you were going to have by owning a business, then you really just own a job. Yeah. And our goal on this call is to stop that, right? To actually own a business.
Look, Jim, and I appreciate you doing this for everybody. It brings us up into our next section, which is the A, right? The audience of this whole thing. And that is simply this. Most people struggle sincerely in what you just said, Jim, literally making no money Why? Because they take a hodgepodge of audience, because they're scared. When you start your own business, or if, let's say you're even a sales rep or something like that, you have serious stress to perform. And so in the beginning, you do what? Put as much effort as you possibly can and take any yes when it comes.
Yes.
But before you know it, what you've done is created a monster that will eat you alive. There is no system or process, because everybody that you deal with is different. You have to reinvent the wheel every time you work with somebody else. Your pricing's all over the place. Your scope of work is all over the place. Your marketing reaches out to any one land, which is like the land of death.
Yes.
So the biggest thing that you can do in the beginning is pick your audience and stick with it. Make sure you understand where you're supposed to help. And anyone is not the answer. If you want to have serious problems, serious ramifications in your operations, start saying yes to anyone and find out what happens.
Great points. Kenley, you mentioned ideal client earlier. You take that one. That's got a lot of meat on it.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Tom. You've got to really zero in on your audience, and that's going to help you, because, as you mentioned, it also can bleed into operations. And if you're a small business, that really just drops profitability like you wouldn't believe, because everybody's trying to trying to serve every master. And, we all, of course, want to over deliver to our clients. Who doesn't, wants to try to have some leadway where they can over deliver a bit, but not actually cost them money. It reminds me of an example, and I'm going to go back to, I know we're talking today a lot about smaller business, but I want to relate it back to the bigger businesses. I was in a company where we decided, my bosses above me decided that if you didn't have this level, X level of profitability, we were going to execute in 12 months. And if you had zero profitability, and by the way, big companies oftentimes have key customers that over time they stop making money against, but they're key customers, key logos, key things they want to keep, on their website or whatever it might be. And the CEO and the board came and said, nope, if they're zero, they got 6 months to figure out how to pay us more fees, or we're going to have to get more efficient, or we're exiting. It's amazing how much profitable the company got. And we learned that we only really exited a few of those customers, because once you went back to the customer and explained to them what was going on, and they saw the 10 years worth of value you were providing them, they happily just pay a better price. They would just get away with it, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Tom, we have about a handful of minutes to go, and we got a couple more questions, but would you we did the S and the A, you may as well give us the M real quick, please.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, thank you, Jim. So the M is the message, right? And that is this, right? Like, here is the rub, right? So people are great at things, right? Have their own core competencies, a dime a dozen. What they can't do is find and acquire clients to actually get them to say yes to their core competencies, especially at a rate or with contracts that make sense. And messaging is key. So after you have your solution, you know that you have your audience in line, you must be able to provide a clear, concise, and compelling message. I'll leave the last C for just a second. Clear means this. Don't use language to your audience that people are trying to have to use some type of code to dissect what you're saying. It's ridiculous. Just speak in normal terms, right? Concise means this. Shut up and just say what you mean, right? And get to the point. If it has to be long and drawn out to explain yourself, you have not given it enough thought in your marketing message. Concise. The last one is compelling. Doesn't make a difference how many times you tell your audience. If they don't take action, it's meaningless. So compelling is all about having some type of provocation, not to be confused with sensationalism. Provocation meaning real interest in what you do. That people really believe that you may be the solution with a little bit more detail. The last C that I'll leave out is consistent. What I mean by consistent it scares people when you say one thing and then your website says another, your LinkedIn profile says something else, right? Your emails are talking about like something else in general. You must have a consistent message across the board. But with a message, if you clearly describe what you do, you concisely tell them how you can help them, you compel them to take action, and you build trust by making sure everything that surrounds you and your business is accurate and consistent, you will win across the board.
No, that's a great explanation. And, you know, I'm going to ask this question, even though I think I already know the answer to it, but because it seems so straightforward. So why aren't more people doing this or doing it this way?
It's amazing to me. If you listen to that, I thought the M was so clear how you described it with the 4 C's. And I bet we all got today 3 emails and 3 LinkedIn messages that were not any of those 3 things or 4 things. And so you would wonder, you know that they're throwing it out there. And so I think what I'm hearing you say today, I've heard you say, is just be very intentional about what you do. Be very focused on what you do with your audience. Keep it like you said, Sam, and your chances, you know, are far greater than all the other noise that's out in the marketplace. And it's about getting to that point.
Yeah, you nailed it. Hey, listen, don't work too hard on what you do. In fact, if you're not getting the client acquisition or the ascensions that you want, in very short order, you must take time, reflect, and say there's something wrong with the way that I'm doing it. Business is actually pretty simple when you have a clear vision of how to get it done and it's executable in a way that sees immediate results. If you don't see those results, stop burying your head in the sand, acknowledge that what you have will not work, and make the changes necessary. If that involves finding a professional to help, go ahead and do so. But at the very least, admit that what you're doing now will never get you what you want, and make the necessary changes that will.
Tom, we're going to have to let that be the last word, but because I think that's hard to beat, actually. I thought that was a great summary of our call today. Tom, why don't you take just a quick second and tell our audience, both on TV and radio, how they can reach out to you and learn more if they're interested?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it, both of you guys. Hey, I make it real simple. I just want to work with real human beings. So I make it easy to connect with me. Find me on my website at www.defiantenterprises.com. Feel free to reach out to me directly through my email, tfreedman@defiantenterprises.com. Or lastly, just give me a call or text, 410-925-6791. Just want to help really solid small business owners get what they really want. Thank you.
We really appreciate your time. And like I said in the opening, I think a lot of your content applies to anybody just trying to lead a team or a group. Do you have any final words before we say goodbye to Tom this month?
No, Tom, thank you so much. It's great to reconnect with you, and I love this content. It was great. And Kendley, to your point, every silo in a business is in itself a small business. So I agree with your perception on utilizing Tom's techniques anywhere.
Tom, thank you for being with us this month. We appreciate having you.
Guys, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Well, Jim, that gets ready to wrap up January. I guess we gotta think about the rest of 2024 now.
That we do. I tell you, it's truly amazing, Kenley, how blessed we've been to have all of these amazing guests providing all this content for our viewers.
Really, I'm glad that we've been able to do this so far, Jim. And as always, we want to invite people to look up the Sales Leader Roundtable and take a look at what we have to offer. And we'll get our programming going for 2024 soon, and we'll communicate that to our audiences in the coming weeks.
That's right. Stay tuned. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us here on the Sales Leader Roundtable. We appreciate having you.
Thank you for joining us today. You are now eligible to attend the peer-to-peer professional development network of the Sales Leader Roundtable. It is held on the 4th Wednesday of each month at 12 o'clock noon Eastern Standard Time. For an invitation, email us at info@salesleaderroundtable.com or visit us at www share.salesleaderroundtable.com. Our next show is scheduled for the first Monday of each month. We hope you will join us again.